All right, welcome back to the Daily Fantasy Flex podcast. It is Tuesday night. I'm here with Jay. We're going to talk Wednesday MLB slate. It's the 7:05 main slate. There's going to be 11 games. It is a split slate tomorrow. There's 15 games total, but 4 earlier in the day, and then we have a nice, solid, not overwhelming, but still good slate of 11 games. So I think it's going to be a good slate to break down. Jay, what's going on?
How's it going, Brian? Yeah, I agree. These are probably my favorite slates. Not the full slates, but also not the small slates that have a lot of overlap. So this nice 11-game slate is great, and it's a pretty balanced slate too in terms of got a few pitchers at the top, some hitters you want to target, and all the works. So yeah, I'm excited, and we're coming off a pretty hectic night tonight. The Mookie Betts Day, 3 home runs. Cargo 4 games in a row with a home run. So today was actually pretty crazy so far. I mean, it's still going on, but it's been pretty intense.
3 home runs. That's insane.
Yeah.
Your namesake.
I know, man. Mookie, just think of what I could have done.
Yeah, you would have been crushing this pod.
Yep.
All right, cool. So we'll go through our segments as usual. I'll give the Vegas lines, and we'll hit some pitchers, batters. We'll give a stack of the day, a stat, and a bullet call of the day. So we'll start with Vegas lines. This is a Coors Field slate. As always, sort of just dominates the day. Cargo coming off 4 games in a row now with home runs. Just the Coors Field is just the thing that you have to deal with sort of starting out, and then you can kind of move from there. They're obviously implied for the most runs at 6.4 right now. Boston's at 4.9. Baltimore, Cincinnati, Houston are at 4.8. Low side, San Diego's at 3. Phillies at 3.1. Tampa Bay's at 3.7. But since we're recording this on Tuesday night, we still have some lines not quite out yet. And as always, it's really important to monitor these lines and also confirmed lineups. They've been really sort of slightly erratic this year in terms of lineups. I think it's been more difficult than usual to project lineups. So, we have this lineups page and Vegas dashboard right on our site. Both are really easy just to have tabs up. They will auto-update the lines. They will auto-update the lineups. So we got you covered, but definitely make sure throughout the day and supplement to this pod to definitely make sure that you're getting that incoming. It's definitely going to adjust how you approach the slate for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think projecting lineups and everything is as good as it's going to get at this point. We have a lot of teams. I think like 65% of teams roll a different lineup out, very often. So we only have a few teams. I mean, the Red Sox are one of my favorites to project because they're very similar and, don't throw a lot of curveballs in their lineups. But some teams, you just don't know. The days off are difficult to anticipate. It's not just as bland as, the catchers getting a day off after a night game or things like that you can anticipate. We're getting a lot of pretty surprising moves, lefties hitting against lefties. And a lot of what I've noticed. What I've noticed actually this season too is that a lot of managers pay attention to BVP. Like tonight was an example. A-Rod was 0 for 14 in his career in his matchup, so they benched him. And just little things like that. Managers put a lot of weight into like the hot hand and history against the pitcher in making lineups. So it's pretty interesting. Mike Matheny is one as well who always plays the hot hand and stuff like that, regardless of the actual quality of matchup.
Interesting. Maybe the managers are playing some DFS. I mean, just don't.
Yeah, I mean, I'd like to think, I hope some of them are under the table a little bit, and Matheny is probably throwing away a lot of money at this point.
Probably
psychotic lineups, yeah.
Probably so. Yeah, he's crazy.
He's insane.
Yeah, but for sure, definitely monitor lines and monitor lineups because it is tough, and we do these early so we can get them to you guys. I know, and we've gotten a lot of feedback, and we always appreciate feedback. Hit us up on Twitter. Always appreciate it. We get a lot of feedback. People like to listen, either late at night or early on their way to work in the morning. So we definitely appreciate you guys listening, and we try to get these out as early as possible so you can get those up. But we definitely don't want to, give you guys bad information. So listen to the pod, but also keep up with the stuff on the site. I think it's a good combination to have.
Yeah, and on that feedback note, I'm always down to get any feedback. Don't be afraid to let me know if I sucked on the pod really bad. and things like that. So it's always good to hear some feedback, to know that there's one person listening or whatever.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice.
Yeah. Hello, Mom. Thank you for listening.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I told you guys that I was named Mookie, so I feel like we have a special bond.
We're friends. We are very close friends, I would say.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Sure. Cool. All right, let's go over some plays here, Jay. We're going to start out. Our first segment is going to be two intriguing pitchers for whatever reason, either because we think they are going to play well or because they're not going to. Really just sort of interesting. We'll leave it open like that to facilitate good conversation. But two intriguing pitchers. Jay, I'll kick to you first. Who are some guys you're looking at tomorrow in the 7:05 main slate?
I kind of went chalky and made my basic two picks, but the first one is Max Scherzer. And on this slate overall, the depth of pitching isn't that great compared to some slates we've had previously. So Scherzer stands out to me at the top, has as much upside as any pitcher with his strikeout potential. He has a bargain rating of 98% on FanDuel, so he's a guy that is my clear-cut cash pitcher play on that site, at least on FanDuel. So I'm already throwing him in my cash lineup for tomorrow. Is the highest K per 9 out of anyone on the slate. The Nationals have the highest money line, minus 200 to win currently. So I think in cash, it's between Scherzer and Lester, I believe, who you'll get into, I believe. So I think it's important, really important on this slate to spend up in cash on one of them. But I'm going to go Scherzer because of kind of the floor and the upside combo there. So it's something I'm not really overthinking too much, and that's my top pitcher of the day.
So let me quickly give my guy, because it's Lester, and I think you're right that it is between the two. So yeah, let's just debate these real quick. You're right. I like Scherzer for all those sort of factors, but Lester, has a very good WHIP as well. He's 1.077 WHIP. He is also a heavy favorite. He's not minus 200 like Scherzer, but he's minus 180. He's got one more pro trend than Scherzer. He's got 10 pro trends on DraftKings to Scherzer's 9 pro trends. If you look at his K prediction, Lester is actually predicted for 9.4 strikeouts, and Scherzer is at 9.0 strikeouts. Lester's in a slightly better park for him. And all of that, and you're getting a $3,000 discount on him. So that's
on DraftKings.
On DraftKings, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. On FanDuel, it's different. But yeah, on DraftKings, the difference between the two in their matchups and sort of all their stats are slight, but the differences in their salaries are huge. So I agree on FanDuel, where you can only get one pitcher. Scherzer is definitely worth a long look. And on DraftKings, I think Lester should be your first guy that you lock in. Maybe you disagree with me.
Yeah, I agree with that. And honestly, I wouldn't mind trying to squeeze both of them in, but you definitely have to go some incredibly cheap hitters with that lineup.
Definitely for sure. But you're right. I do like the Scherzer call. I mean, he's only 10-7 on FanDuel. So definitely a different situation. And that's shown by his bargain rating. He's got a 1% bargain rating on DraftKings.
Makes sense. Yeah,
maybe in tournaments for that reason. But
I still think he'll be pretty highly owned. I think these two guys are definitely above everybody else. But I do like the next guy I'll talk about real quick is Felix Hernandez. One thing kind of against him this season, he's really struggled with his strikeouts this season. It's kind of been alarming. He's registering the lowest K per 9 rate of his career. So I'm looking at Felix and kind of knowing all this, and you look at these top two chalky guys, and Felix stands out to me as a contrarian play. A guy who will carry very low ownership relative. So I want exposure in tournaments to Felix because the Padres are a team that strikes out a lot. They have the 4th highest strikeout rate against right-handed pitchers. So I think the top few options with their large percentage ownership and not a lot of great options overall in this 11-game slate kind of make me lean towards Felix as a tournament option. And it give me that contrarian edge, especially if I end up stacking some of these more common offenses that are implied to score a lot of runs. So Felix for me is a solid tournament play.
Yeah, I agree on the tournament thing. I will say I'm not going to touch him in cash games. If you look at his, and I actually talked about him in his last game, the one that he really struggled against Minnesota of all teams, where he allowed 8 hits and 6 earned runs rather, in just 6 innings pitched to the Twins, who are not exactly the greatest hitting team in the world. But I mentioned before that sort of despite the success he's had, which is sort of a results-oriented type of analysis, he's had such a crazy low BABIP that just wasn't going to be sustainable. It was like a 200 BABIP. That just is going to come up. And it came up last game. Minnesota got hits into the field and they turned up for hits and ended up earned runs. And sometimes that we miss the sort of BABIP sort of analysis where there's a lot of luck that goes into some of these things. Like a guy could crush a ball and it be a liner straight to third or something, or sometimes if it's just 2 feet higher, then all of a sudden you're looking at a triple. There's the room for error in some of these is so small that you sort of have to look at all sort of different stats. You have to look at advanced stats. You have to look at their general stats like their K9, but you also have to look at sort of luck stats like BABIP and just make sure that they're not due for some crazy regression. So Felix, I just want to mention that because I think he saw some regression. He's still a little expensive, which means that I'm not touching him in cash. But I agree in tournaments, the matchup is tasty here.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. All right, thanks for letting me rant there.
Yeah, no problem, man.
Cool. My second pitcher, after that we'll give a pitcher to fade, is Shoemaker. And really, it's just hard for me to find a second guy that I like that much, and especially in like DraftKings for cash games. I like Lester a lot, like I said, and I like Scherzer, but he's so expensive on DraftKings. So I'm trying to, and it's spent a lot of time trying to figure out who's the second guy that I like on DraftKings, if I have to go Lester and then a cheaper pitcher to get some of these bats. And it's not great. I mean, Danny Duffy, Mike Fiers, if you're having to go some of these cheap guys that, have a lot of risk and also don't have necessarily a ton of upside in terms of innings pitch potential and going long into the game, which is sort of what you want in cash. I'm going to Shoemaker. He's been pretty good lately, and his stats have shown that. He's gone over 7 innings pitched in the last 2 games. He's got a hard hit rate allowed of 25%, which is low. And his distance differential lately is minus 24 feet, which means that the distance he's allowed of batted balls has decreased by 24 feet in his last couple starts, I suppose. And he's been good in the last 2 games. So really, this is I'm struggling for a second pitcher by going Shoemaker. But against Detroit, sort of hit or miss team. And a guy who's been good lately and going longer into games. Shoemaker is not a guy that I hate. Or maybe I guess I hate him less than the other second. Is maybe a better way.
Yeah, it's just a matter of hating things less than other things at this point. But, I agree. I mean, he has 23 strikeouts, I believe, in his last 2 games. So he's a pitcher who has upside that a lot of other pitchers, like you mentioned, just don't have. So, and I definitely struggled as well after I took the top 2. That was chalky, but after that, it's very slim pickings. And that kind of leads me into the fade. I'll let you talk about the fade that you have because I agree with it, and it's the same one I would pick. But after that, like you said, there's really nobody else that I like. So there's nobody else I'm really fading because I don't think anyone else will carry enough ownership to kind of qualify them as a fade. So I think my fade is just every other pitcher on this slate except the top few guys that we already mentioned. So you look at the upside of a lot of these guys, I really question the upside. So I think this slate kind of shapes up to be one of those slates where you really lock in a core of pitchers, core of maybe 3 guys on DraftKings total and 2 on FanDuel total or something very small, and then get different exposure in your hitters. So you kind of want to lock in that core of these top tiered pitchers who have all the upside that the other pitchers just don't really have. So just the levels of upside are so large. I think fading all the pitchers outside of the 4 we just mentioned is my strategy. So Felix, Scherzer, Lester, Shoemaker, just get exposure to them, and I'm fading the rest. Actually, there's one other guy I'll throw in a couple lineups, but I'll mention him later. But you can go ahead with the fade for an individual pitcher that I agree with as well. So you can run with this one.
Yeah, so it's a guy that I think people are going to be interested in because of his upside. He has the second highest K9 on the slate, just below Scherzer. A guy that I think is pretty good. Just an awful matchup tomorrow is why I think we're fading him here. Chris Archer. He does have the strikeout potential, but he's facing the Royals, who just don't ever strike out. I mean, they've got a strikeout per at-bat rate of .1995, which is the second lowest Slate, only to San Francisco, who also never strikes out. There's 1 and 2. Just great hitting teams in MLB. Two great teams, obviously, and guys that just don't strike out and make contact, and it's just an awful matchup. So Chris Archer's the guy that you usually pay for him and you usually need him to get strikeouts for him to be a useful player, and in this matchup, he's just not going to get them. So that's my fade, and I think it's a pretty easy one, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree with it. Definitely.
All right, let's move into bats then. You want to give me a couple that stand out to you?
Yeah, one is ultra chalk. Maybe not because of his price, but it's just obvious to pinpoint him. Is David Ortiz, and I honestly don't even know what to really think of him this year. Big Papi. He's just it's insane how well he's playing this season. If you just look at his game log, you won't even believe it. His stats. He has 6 games in a row with over 20 FanDuel points. I mean, it's ridiculous. He has a 447 WOBA against righties, 373 ISO, which I believe is second highest of regular starters. He's by far the most expensive first baseman, but I think he's definitely worth the price. He's exceeded his salary base expectation 56% of the time in the last month, with a total an average plus minus each game of plus 3.87 points. So I think it's kind of a piece you want to have exposure to in some of your tournament lineups. I realize it's pretty difficult, especially on DraftKings, to afford him in cash at a heavy price, but I think you can't really just fade him overall with that kind of upside that he has every single night, especially against a right-handed pitcher. And another hitter I'm really high on is George Springer. Since he's been moved to the leadoff hitter a week ago on May 24th, he's hitting .457 with an .800 slugging percentage. He has 3 dongs in that same time frame, with 8 RBIs span. So I'm really high on Springer in that leadoff role. And then in this game, he gets to face a lefty. You look at stats, he's a .418 WOBA against lefties. So I think a lot of attention will be put on the Rockies, the Red Sox, Orioles as well. So I think you might be able to get some decreased ownership here with Springer. So I really like him in tournaments, and I also think he's a bit underpriced on FanDuel at just 3,800.
Yeah, I like those two calls a lot. Ortiz, obviously. It's so good. I'll go right back to the Houston call. Yeah, my first guy is actually a guy that I really like tomorrow. He actually is he's the number 1 player batter in my model right now. Obviously, that'll potentially change depending on as we get lines and as things move. But as of right now, he's the number 1 player in my model. It's Jose Altuve. He is going to hit high for Houston. He's been trending up lately. He had struggled for a little while there, but he's coming off back-to-back games where he's had double-digit hits and had a couple RBIs. He's obviously got good power. He's got a 432 WOBA against left-handed pitchers rather. He's got a 218 ISO, 582 slugging. So he's got all the sort of power that you want. And one thing that I also really love, and it's just super, super rare because you never find this, he's a guy that has power but also stolen base potential. He's got those elite power stats, but he's also averaging .25 stolen bases per game, which is just an elite mark. So you have the rare sort of upside in both categories, both with his bat and with his legs, and a guy that obviously has a very high WOBA. So you count that as a tick that he could get on base, and then once he's on base, he could do some damage. So I think a guy that score a variety of fantasy points in a lot of ways is a guy that I love in cash games and tournaments because he just has so much safety and upside, I think.
Yeah, I agree, which and really compares to Willie Mays Hayes. How much would you pay for Willie Mays Hayes on draft? I'd pay like $8 grand at least to roster that. Yeah, I mean that'd be a no-brainer. Yeah, he'd probably average 30 or so fantasy points a game.
Yeah, no, he would crush. Yeah, of course. Yeah, would you? Let's see here. Would you go Mike Wright and Adam Morgan as your pitchers to get him in?
I would. Yeah, absolutely. that's a no-brainer.
Opportunity.
Willie Mays Hayes. I mean, he'd hit like 3 bombs. He'd pull a Mookie Betts, but also steal like 6 bases.
6 bases. Yeah. How do you steal that many bases when you're hitting home runs every?
It's crazy. Only Willie Mays Hayes can do it. That's what's so crazy about it.
Yeah. I agree.
It's insane.
I can't prove that you're wrong. So
Right. All right, who's your other hitter you got?
Trevor Story's the other guy that I like. Not too bold taking a Colorado guy, but yeah, I mean, he's obviously got good splits. He's got a 309 ISO versus right-handed pitchers. And really, it's, I don't love, mentioning, because it just feels cheap mentioning these Colorado guys. They're the highest implied team by far, and it's in Coors Field. But I feel like I have to mention them because of the matchup. I mean, they're facing John Lamb, who just gives up so many home runs. He's a 1.632 home run per 9 rate, which is the highest in the slate, which is just not a good combination. It's not a good combination to give up the most home runs in a slate and have to pitch at Coors Field. That's not a good situation to be in as a pitcher. So, I just sort of picked a Colorado guy that I like that I think is going to be interesting. I mean, you could obviously go Cargo. He'll be a guy that people go with because of his recent play. Arenado is always a guy that people like. Trevor Story, I think, is going to be, maybe a little – I don't know. Probably none of these guys will be underowned, but Trevor Story is the guy that I like tomorrow out of all of the Colorado batters. He's probably my favorite right now. So he's my lead bet. But really just target Lamb because he's going to give up some points, especially in Coors Field.
Absolutely.
Cool. Let's go over some value bets. You got some for me?
Yeah, my first value bet directly ties into Lamb, Ryan Rayburn. He kind of always works his way into the pod when the Rockies are playing at Coors Field and facing a lefty, assuming Rayburn plays, of course. In 9 such instances this season, he's recorded a plus 1.78 plus minus. You look at his stats, he's a 414 WOBA, 276 ISO. Against lefties over the last 12 months, look at the Rockies. They were implied to score 6.4 runs as of now, so I think you definitely need exposure to them in cash and definitely some of your tournament teams as well, despite the expected high ownership. You look at the Rockies, fading them at home in these great matchups. I mean, they came out tonight, scored, I think, 5 runs, was it, in the first inning. So you look at Rayburn, favorable spot in the lineup, middle of the lineup, playing against a bad lefty, going to score a lot of runs. At 3,200 on FanDuel, he's not quite like a dirt cheap play like some of these value plays usually are, but he still offers quite a bit of salary relief. So he's a guy I'm definitely looking to fit in my cash lineup. And another guy who was quite a bit cheaper is Hyun-Soo Kim. Expected to hit second after being out of the lineup on Tuesday versus a lefty. Kim is just 2,500 on FanDuel. His bargain rating is 90%. You look at his advanced stats as well. They've been great recently. Positive differentials in batted ball distance, exit velocity, and hard hit percentage. And then you look at the Orioles, and while it's not the Rockies, they are implied to score, I believe, 4.8 runs as of now. So I think you look at a guy like Kim hitting second in the order at that dirt cheap price. He benefits also from a 78th percentile park factor in his favor. So he's a guy I'm definitely looking at exposure to kind of save and pay up for one of those top 2 pitchers.
Yeah, great call on that. The first guy that I'll mention is Zach Cozart. And actually, I'm mentioning all middle infielders here. I mentioned Altuve at second base, Story at shortstop. Then I got 2 shortstop value guys here. So nice. I like the middle infield tomorrow night. Cozart's the guy that I'll mention. Sort of dancing the line of where a value bet is. I do think he qualifies, especially if you use our bargain rating metric. He's got a 94% bargain rating on DraftKings. I think that is really useful, especially when a guy has a bargain rating on DraftKings as opposed to FanDuel, because DraftKings has tighter pricing on guys. So when they have a high rating on DraftKings, that means that they're usually going to be value. It's a fairly predictive way to look at salary changes and stuff. Anyway, Cozart, I think is still a value, just sort of regardless of that. He's 3,700 on DK, which is crazy considering, look at his stats. He's got 221 ISO versus right-handed pitchers. He's got pretty much even splits against righties and lefties. He's got a 503 slugging as well. He's projected to hit first for Cincinnati. They're playing at Coors Field. They're implied to score 4.8 runs, park factor of 100, obviously, because it's Coors. I mean, I don't get why he's 3,700. He seems just like a very, very easy guy to play. So he's my first value guy, but I think he'll be chalk and a guy you should definitely look hard at because he's just too cheap for his stats, his peripherals, and his situation. So Cozart for sure. The other guy I mentioned, another shortstop, is Carlos Correa, who's really, really, really been struggling so far this year. But I think he might be trending up. So 2 games ago, he actually did not play, but he pinch hit late in the game and hit a home run. And then last night, he had 2 hits, and I think could be trending up a little bit. He looked better. He's still cheap, so you're getting him on the come up, and it's obviously always better to be on the before they get expensive as opposed to after they get expensive, after they get hot. You want to be on that side of things. So he's only 3.6 on DK. This is a guy who got really, really expensive last year. He's the most expensive shortstop pretty much every slate at the end of last year. And Houston's applied for a lot of runs, like we've talked about with Springer and Altuve. They're implied for 4.8 runs right now. So you're getting a guy who could be trending up, and you're getting him at a really cheap price, and you know what his sort of talent is. So that sort of just all sort of combines for me into a situation where I think I'm going to take some risk and go Correa in a bunch of tournament lineups. I think there's a lot of upside there.
Yeah, I like that. He's definitely a player who has immense upside. So Great call.
Cool. You want to give me a stack?
Yeah, stack I'm looking at is the Nationals, again, facing Aaron Morgan. The Nats are 3rd in WOBA, 3rd in ISO, and 2nd in slugging percentage against left-handed pitchers this season. Aaron Morgan is a lefty. He also has a high home run rate. So I like a lot of these Nationals right-handed bats. They're all a lot cheaper on FanDuel, so I'm looking to kind of get a lot of exposure there. Plenty of 4 different hitter stacks, still maintaining that ability to afford a top-tier pitcher. I'm kind of looking at Zimmerman, Worth, Wilson Ramos, Ben Revere. I'm kind of hoping Bryce Harper sits again against a lefty, so people might just have less of a desire to maybe stack the Nats without Bryce. So I'm looking for kind of low ownership overall stack with the Nats, and I like the upside they have here facing a home run prone lefty. So they're my stack of the day. Who you got?
Yeah, same sort of situation in that I like a sort of particular handedness of a team. My stack is the Red Sox. I promise they were my pick before Mookie had all of the home runs. So
I believe it.
Seems a little lamer now, but I like the Red Sox. They've obviously shown that they are pretty hot right now, or at least Mookie is. Actually, another reason I like them is one of our writers, Jacob A., what we call him, wrote a trend of the day the other day about Oriole Park and how left-handed batters have a really sort of underrated and nice park rating there. Our park rating, actually, if you weren't aware, is actually broken down not only by park but also by handedness, which is really cool. So parks have different dimensions, and they're not necessarily the same sort of upside for each hand. Sometimes it's shorter to left field or shorter to right field. And Oriole Park is one that's really nice for left-handed hitters. So, you mentioned a guy that happens to be left-handed and happens to have some upside potential, I think, in Ortiz. And Boston has some left-handed batters that have some upside potential, and some righties as well with Mookie. So I really like the Red Sox stacks, especially if you could get a bunch of those lefties in the same lineup. So they're my stack of the day. Even though it's not as crazy now that they just scored all of the home runs, really.
Right. Yeah, they're always a pretty solid stack.
Yeah. Cool. You got a stat of the day, not to be confused with stack.
Yeah, this one is on FanDuel. It's that Tyler Chatwood leads all pitchers on FanDuel with 8 pro trends, which is kind of crazy to look at because he's pitching at Coors Field. And we have some really good pitchers on the slate, so that immediately stood out to me as kind of awkward, odd stat. So I have confessed though on this pod that I'm a Chatwood truther, and this is the only other guy other than those top 4 that I'm willing to have any exposure to because I'm locking in a core in tournaments, and then obviously I'm going Scherzer and cash. So I'm being pretty basic with my pitching, but I think Chatwood is intriguing here. You look at his last 2 starts at home. He's got 7 innings in each. He's registered 42 and 36 FanDuel points in those 2 games. So I think as a way to save a lot of salary to afford some of these high-priced stacks, the Rockies in particular, Red Sox, like we just mentioned. And then I think you want to be contrarian. I think it's an interesting idea to entertain, kind of having some exposure to him in a few tournament lineups. So I'm hesitant really to go too much of him because of his limited strikeout upside. The only thing I'm not looking feeling too great about it. I mean, besides him playing Coors Field, but he's just accumulated 12 strikeouts in his last 4 games. So kind of hoping for maybe these top pitchers to not just go over 50 points, 45 or so. They kind of bust a little bit, and Chatwood is not that far behind them. He goes maybe 7 innings again, 4 or 5 strikeouts, a couple runs. In that chance, you're saving a lot of salary and not missing out on too much upside that I think you can make up for in your bats.
Yeah, man, I didn't expect you to get so bold before our bold call of the day. Some Chatwood exposure.
Real bold, yeah.
No, I like the call, and I'll add to it, actually. Marty Foster, their home plate ump, actually has the best plus-minus. He has, on average, 1.7 points over expectations to pitchers, which is the highest Slate, which actually leads me to my next to actually my stat of the day, which is on the other side. Dana DeMuth, his ump plus-minus is minus 1.1, which is the lowest of the day, and that affects our dear friend Max Scherzer. So he's the ump behind the plate for Washington, Philly. So probably isn't going to necessarily take you off of him in cash on FanDuel, but it's just sort of an interesting thing. I really like that we have umpire plus minus and just sort of another way to measure pitchers and what we like. It's just a cool thing to have in our models. Definitely an edge to be had. So I think it's interesting to see Marty Foster and DeMuth there as potential guys that you want to keep your eye on, because they could affect some things.
Agree completely.
Like it. All right, let's end with a bold call.
The bold call today is that Ryan Zimmerman goes yard, facing a lefty. I was thinking about pulling a Pete and calling a DJ LeMahieu double dong, but I just didn't have it in me. So I'm going to go a bit less bold here and just call for a simple Ryan Zimmerman, 1 home run. That's all he's got to do. And it just kind of emphasizes how much I like these Nats guys with their power upside against left-handed pitchers. So I think dongs will be flying left and right in this game, and one of them will be Zimmerman's.
I like it. Yeah, that's a DJ LeMahieu double dong is about as bold as it gets.
I've never heard of anything so bold.
Yeah, it's crazy. My bold call is the Rockies are going to have double-digit runs. I mean, okay, so it's not that bold to say the Rockies are going to score a lot of runs, but I do think it is fairly bold to predict them for double digits. I mean, they're predicted at 6.4 right now, so it's already a high number, but I'm increasing that a little bit, and it's mostly because they're facing John Lamb. So he's many runs available to the Rockies, and they're projected for 6.4, but I will be bold and I will say that they're going to get up double digits. Lamb is not good. Coors is good. Combination.
Coors is really good. What were they today? 6.6 projected, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And they just got their double digits with Arenado's second bomb of the day. It's just way too good. I think he leads the majors now. He's the GOAT.
He is the
GOAT. So they have 11 already. So yeah, pretty crazy.
Yeah, I haven't talked about Arenado in a while. At the beginning of the year, I just gushed about him all the time. But he's one of my favorite players. He's so good.
He's amazing.
Not quite as good as Mookie though.
No BS. His name pales in comparison too. So.
Yeah, it's not a fair comparison, to be honest, though.
Right. Cool. This is true.
All right, well, I guess we'll end it there, Jay. You and Pete are back on Thursday night for the Friday pod, so be looking out for that. Everyone, thanks for listening. As always, good luck in tournaments, cash games, whatever you're playing. Definitely monitor lines, monitor lineups on the site. We'll have content for you tomorrow. All sort of things. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Good luck.
Yeah, good luck, everybody.